Well, I'm Tiffany Bunt. I work in marketing and communications here at the university. I will be the moderator for this panel, so I'm going to first get all of you to introduce yourselves, tell us what you do, and then we'll start some questions.
Hi, I'm Hope Finley, and I'm the marketing coordinator for Eco Credit Union. I also run the Eco Credit Union Foundation.
Hi, I'm Sydney Robertson. I work at Hibbett Sports. I'm the digital video producer. I make web videos, product videos for our website.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Shelton, and I'm Director of Marketing Communication for PharmaPoint. It's a pharmacy management and software company based out of Birmingham.
Hello, I'm Amelia Bennett. I'm a senior social media coordinator at Strong Automotive Merchandising, and I also run our Strong Automotive social media pages.
I'm Devin Cooley. I work at Hibbett Sports. I'm a manager, web operations team lead.
How y'all doing? Y'all awake? I'm Mike Rada. I'm the performance manager at Strong Automotive Merchandising. And what I do is I really look at employees' career development, help them get to where they want to go through training and everything else that they need. We're big on employee retention at Strong. We want to make sure our employees stay happy.
Hey, I am Mackenzie McCreelis, and I am on the experience team at Shipt, and my title is Communication Specialist.
Hi, my name is Brittany Campbell. I'm also a communication specialist at Shipt, which is a grocery delivery service, if you didn't know.
And before I get started, I have to give a little shout out to our Strong folks, because Strong Automotive is also owned by two of our alumni from the university and the namesake of this building. So we're very proud of our Strong folks. Okay, to get started, I have a few questions. And normally I pick on people, but I'm going to let you, since we have so many, just let me know if you want to answer this one or not. And try to limit yourself to 1 to 2 minutes, since we do only have an hour. All right, so the first question. Let us know some things that you participated in school that helped you in your career. So what did you participate in that these students should give a look at to help them with their career?
One of the things that I really love talking about that I was a part of while I was at was the Falcon Scholar in Action program. This is a really great way to build any professional skills and also give back to the community while you're at it. I was placed at Owens House, which is the Children's Advocacy Center in Shelby County. So I was a PR intern there, and so I served around 10 months. You get a stipend, so you do get paid, you get compensated for your time. Ended up being around $200 a month, and I served 10 hours a week. And so I would definitely encourage you, if you haven't already, look into the Falcon Scholar program, because it's a really great thing to get to be a part of at the university.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Hi, guys. My name is Reed Strength. I am an alumni from the Mass Communication program from 2016, and I work at Shipt. I am the Shopper Comms copywriter.
I am Laura Ogubier. I graduated December 2015 at Mass Comm major as well. I have my PR minor too, for those who are doing that. It's very helpful. And I work at Meredith Corporation. I work in the Meredith Food Studios next to Samford University, doing workflow coordination, project management.
All right, to refresh everybody, we're asking, what did you participate in while you were in school that helped you reach your career or start your career, and that you could advise these students to be involved in? So did I have someone?
So here at Montevallo, I was part of Falcon Fever. I was also part of National Broadcasting Society. And with what I do now, working with those two projects, trying to get other students engaged in something, getting the word out, posting things about Falcon Fever or MBS on my own social media. That's kind of like what we do with our Strong social media. We're an engagement-based digital service. So we try to make those connections and kind of working with the same thing at Montevallo with what I do now.
I believe it was either my junior or my senior year. I also had a PR minor when I was here, and a part of that, I had an internship through the fine arts department, and so I was under Dean Peters, and along with writing press releases, I also got the opportunity to make promotional videos for things that were going on in the fine arts department. So I believe the choir at the time was raising money for a trip that they were going on, so I was able to make a promotional video for them, which is something that they didn't have, so they were really excited about that because they could post it onto their social media. And in addition to that, it was also making a promotional video for the theater show that was going on at that time. And so that kind of opened my eyes to see that there's other avenues of types of videos that you can make specifically for social media and in relation to public relations. So that was a good opportunity, whether or not, I'm not sure if they still do that, but I'm sure that there's some way that you could still try to be involved with that.
So I was a part of Falcon Weekly. I think it's called Valavision News now. And before working at ECO, I actually worked for the Birmingham Barons, and now I'm at ECO. But one of the things that I didn't realize was when I came to ECO, I was going to be the talent for all of our commercials. And also we give out grants each week with CBS 42. And so there's times that the talent from CBS 42 can't make it. So they're like, hey, miking you up, let's do this. So it was really great to have that extra knowledge about, how it works behind the scenes and how to get mic'd up, how to perform when you're on camera, and how to talk. And so I would definitely encourage you to get involved with Valavision News if you're not already in the newscast class. It will help you in the long run. And while I was at the Barons as well, there were certain times that they just needed somebody to interview to get a quote from. So being comfortable enough to jump in front of the camera and talk is definitely an asset.
Yeah. Hi, guys. So when I was a student here, I graduated from this program, but I would say probably the biggest foundation to my education besides this program was being involved with the Alabamian. I wrote for the Alabamian from my freshman year to my senior year, and I tried my best with classes and everything else to write at least one story a week. And let me tell you, after all of that, not only did I have an enormous writing portfolio to show employers once I graduated from here, but it taught me how to basically write something every day. The more that you write and the more that you can be a good communicator like that and get experience, that is a huge part of what I do in my current role as copywriter. I mean, sometimes I have 7, 8 tasks that I've got to write at once, and luckily because of my 4 years toiling with the Alabamian, I know how to do that, and I know how to pace myself that way. So any opportunities that you guys can get, like the Alabamian, like the Falcon News Network that Hope is talking about, I mean, to get experience that you can then show employers, like this wasn't just classwork, this was stuff that I did outside of that, paramount, huge, 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 huge.
I second the Alabamian, like 100%. He was my boss at the Alabamian. I was like, oh, I just want to write a couple of stories, no big deal. But it's actually, you can get paid to write stories for the Alabamian. And yeah, occasionally. And it's really good, like you said, teaching you how to prioritize things because you're a student and you have classwork to do on top of writing a story about McDonald's being open for 24 hours, which was my very first story. So anyway, I strongly recommend that.
Okay, for our next question, what networking tips would you offer to students? Since a lot of you haven't been out of school for very long, and some of you have been out of school for a while, let us know what networking tips we should be paying attention to.
I think one of the most important things that you don't really think about is how aggressive you need to be at networking. You need to be the one to go out and start these conversations with people. What a really good idea would be is to find out a position that you really are interested in and find somebody in that position at a company that you may have some sort of connection to or can create a connection to, and go out and just talk to those people, get their email address and email them, or go to there in person and try to talk to them. Just put yourself out there and make sure that you are being aggressive in your pursuit of what you want. Because in a lot of corporate settings, which I think a lot of people up here are corporate. That's the only way that you're going to progress, is you have to be aggressive. And I think that's something you don't really think about a lot.
Hey, I'm an outsider. I'm a University of Alabama grad. And there we had a Public Relations Student Society of America, and so I was involved with that on campus, and that's actually something we're talking about maybe launching here for you guys. But after I graduated, then I became a member of Public Relations Council of Alabama, and I actually serve on the board for the Birmingham chapter. So for me, that was paramount in making connections. I had it at the student level. We hosted conferences even for the state, and then the contacts that I made through that kind of journeyed me into my career. Once I moved to Birmingham, I was able to tap into that society. They kind of already knew who I was, knew my background, and those contacts are just phenomenal. They've helped me. We help each other. You know, we'll send emails and say, hey, we need a vendor to make a sign for this, or we need a videographer for something, and we all help each other. So it's continual networking once you plug into a society like that.
And I'll add to that when, as young professionals, when you graduate, a lot of those organizations have entry-level fees that for recent grads. So it's something to get involved in while you're in school and as soon as you graduate.
This is not necessarily networking, but I guess it could fall into this category. But you're probably going to go through a lot of different jobs in your life. And if you were to leave a job, leave on good terms. Don't burn any bridges, because you never know when you're going to need those people again. So always try to make sure that you contain, good relationships, and you foster good relationships as well.
One of the things I think is important is a personal connection. A handwritten note goes so far versus an email or a phone call. I would much rather receive a handwritten note from someone who I talked with about a potential job opportunity, whether it be a thank you note or a I'd like to meet you note or can I come by and visit you note. Those go so far in my book versus an email. It puts a personal touch to it. And in communications, that's what it's all about. It's being personal, communicating one-on-one, being able to hold those and build those relationships.
What I want to say is, we've talked a lot, I feel like, so far about people that you are interested in meeting. So, people that you don't know but you want to know. I would also say it's extremely important when you graduate to keep up connections with your fellow alumni. I mean, you look at like a place like Shipped, I mean, we have 20 plus Montevallo grads who are working there. And I mean, I think a lot of that is from who you know and who you went to class with. So I would say make sure that once you graduate, you keep a personal connection with some students, whether that's on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever. But just also make sure to, while you're here, get to know each other and get to know your interests and get to know your, just kind of where each other's headed and try to keep up with that, because that could really help out in the future.
Going back to the aggressive thing, a couple of people at my job have just emailed me and said, hey, I'd love to come see the place. I'd love to take a tour. And because I have a really busy full-time job, their email will kind of fall down to the bottom. So if you don't hear back from someone, don't think they don't care about you. Send them another email. Send them a personal note like this gentleman suggested. Like, these things are super, super helpful in the connections. And I just wanted to add that on.
I will also add to Reed's as far as alumni. Make sure you stay involved in alumni events because it's a great networking place. Okay, for our next question. What are some misconceptions that you had about the job field before you entered? While you were a student, things you thought that may not exactly have been true. Hopefully we're going to get some really good answers on this one.
So going into social media, I thought starting, I wanted to go into production. So social media was something completely new for me. And I started this job thinking I had to have everything correct. I had to be right 100% of the time, and I was going to be fired if I made a mistake. Let me tell you, I think every day, I think I went for the first year, I was like, oh my gosh, that period, there was a space after the word and then the period, that's going to be it. I'm going to be fired. So we make like up to 6,000 posts a month, and 0.98% of those have one kind of mistake, whether it's a word with 2 capital letters, you get fast typing. But don't think that you have to have everything off the bat right, correct. You've got to know it all, and you don't have any room to learn. There's always room to learn. Mistakes are okay. We're human. It's not the end of the world. So, but yeah, I hope I don't get fired.
You just confessed your mistake. I don't know if this was a misconception for me, but I know at Alabama, once I started as a freshman all the way through, my professors would constantly say to me that when you're doing, my major was PR and then my master's in PR advertising, would constantly say, if you're doing PR, you're doing communications, be ready to be somebody that can wear a lot of hats. And so I heard that over and over, but until you actually get into your job and I saw it for myself, I do, and I still do. I'm kind of a one-man show where I am, and I may be writing and editing all day one day, and the next day I'm planning an event, and the next day I'm meeting with, head of marketing at a hospital in New York. But it also makes the job fun if you embrace it that way, because I don't do the same thing, the same 2 days in a row, which is great. So that's one thing that I didn't fully understand until I got into the job force, but it's also positive.
Mine kind of piggybacks off of Amelia's about thinking you have to be like perfect in stepping into it. I was scared the fact of like, I didn't understand that they're gonna train you when you step into a position. I was under the impression that I need to know exactly what I'm gonna do day one, no help at all. Like, you're gonna get trained everywhere you go. And I also kind of thought I'm gonna have to learn on my own time, but like, you're always learning new things, whether it's like directly related to your job or like can be weaved into it down the road. Like, you'll never stop learning, and so don't stop yourself from doing that either.
I think to add a little bit more to what Sydney said there too, always be willing to learn new things as you're going through. You definitely don't have to know or have this full background in whatever you're going into from school. You're going to have a limited background in certain areas or no background in other areas too. My first while when I was at Hibbett, I did video production as well, similar to what Sydney does. And one of the last projects that I worked on, my boss, let me know, hey, we need, I think it was 24 videos, and the exact setup and the way he wanted the videos, what he saw was something that I'd never done before, but I knew I was capable of it, but I was going to have to learn this. And so for like 2 days, all I did was just watch YouTube videos on how to run this program that I just happened to never use here at Montevallo, but being able to problem solve and learn on the go, which are things that you learn here, whether it be doing things like Falcon Fever or the newscast, that kind of thing. Those are huge, huge things to learn and to use going forward.
I think, like a general misconception, I think, is that when you graduate with a specific degree, I feel like you think that like, all right, I have got to get a job in my field first. That is what I've got to do. And if you can do that, great. But if you've got to get work experience elsewhere and build other skills to act as a stepping stone to another job that relates more to your degree, that's fine. And that happens all the time. I graduated with a journalism degree, and then I went into PR, and then I went into copywriting. So I could still end up in journalism somewhere, but I've enjoyed the journey so far. So I would just say keep your options open. Don't think you have to be in a really specific box when you get out there. You can do a lot of other things and then loop it back to something later. I am still freelancing, yes. Yeah.
All right, anybody else with misconceptions before I move on? Okay. All righty. So my next one, if you could go back and tell your college self one thing, what would it be? Career oriented, but what would you?
I wish I would have taken advantage of the career development center on campus a little bit more. Angie Kelly and her staff are phenomenal. I know they help out the communication studies program a lot, and during the professional development process, they were so important to, mock interviews, going over resumes, going over cover letters. I mean, literally anything that you have questions about if you're going for an interview or you're just looking for jobs, just browsing, I would definitely encourage you to start now, start going to interviews now. If you have a job in mind that you think that you're going to start looking for, set up mock interviews. Start working on cover letters in your resume. You can always improve your resume, and you can always expand on your cover letters depending on the job that you're looking at. So I definitely wish I would have started a little bit early in the process with building that relationship with Angie Kelly and the Career Development Center for sure.
I think one thing that I was really concerned about was making sure that I fit into whatever the mold was that I needed to be for that role. So whatever that I thought that that job expected from me, that's what I was going to try to be. And I think a lot of the times what I found is that they really just want something unique, somebody different. So if you can make your resume stand apart and be really different and unique, and then when you go in there, you're really different and unique in the interview, I think that that really makes you stand apart. So don't really try to fit into whatever you think you're supposed to be for that position, but just make sure that you're being yourself and you're making yourself stand apart from other people. And I think a little bit of what Reed was saying, you should be on your own timeline. Like, don't worry about having a job in your field right when you graduate. If it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. Like, you can't make stuff happen, you know, always. You just have to kind of work your way there sometimes, and that's okay too.
I think one of the things that I would definitely tell myself if I could go back is that learning doesn't have to stop once you leave the classroom. Is that like taking the initiative to learn on your own time, and it may not even be anything specifically directed at what class you're taking, but like what kind of field that you're wanting to go in. So I wish I would have taken the initiative to learn more, like watch YouTube videos. There's so many YouTube videos out there, learn like specifically After Effects. Luckily, my position at my job, I'm able to continue to learn. So I'm always watching YouTube videos as far as like, how do I do this graphics technique, like doing After Effects. And I know Devin did the same thing when he was just talking about as far as like watching YouTube videos. It's just don't limit yourself to only what can my professor teach me. Like, get your source of information from anywhere you can. YouTube, networking, like speaking to any of us, that kind of thing.
I'll add to that too that lynda.com is a great resource. And you do have to pay for it, but there's a lot of places that'll offer you a student discount, and I believe even the library in Shelby County will help you get it for free if you go there. So it's a great resource. All right, for my next question, I'm going to lean on people who have actually hired someone, whether it's interns or actual employees. But what are the most important skills needed to stand out in an interview? What are employers really looking for?
So I hired an intern when I was at the Barrons, and just somebody that was charismatic, because at the Barrons I did run their social media, and also somebody that's trustworthy. We dealt with top prospects in baseball, so people that, you know, are pretty popular. So I was down there with them all the time, and just remembering like not to like freak out and fangirl or fanboy, whatever it is. You know, because, I mean, they're just normal people too. So being able to sit down and actually have a one-on-one conversation with somebody, but also like put your own style to it, and somebody that was creative, and also somebody that's dependable, because I ran into that a lot where it was like, okay, where is this person? I need their help. So as long as you're dependable and you're relatable and you can, and you're creative, I guess that's what I would most look for in an intern. So.
My two things would be that the person is teachable and that they're a team player. Because just as been mentioned so many times on this panel today, you're not expected to know everything, but if you're teachable and you're willing to learn, then any successful organization would be crazy not to give you a chance. And then as far as the team player goes, you know, no organization wants somebody that's in it just for them or is willing to throw a coworker under a bus. You've got to be willing to collaborate and be able to work with a team.
I agree with that. I think it's important to find someone who fits into the company culture. At Strong, we're big on culture, huge on culture. We have 10 core values, and we want to make sure that we have people who appreciate those 10 core values and respect those 10 core values. We get a lot of resumes we interview a lot of people. We also use something called a culture index. I'm not sure if any of you are aware of that. You may be aware of something called the DISC assessment. Any of you? Yes? So the culture index is basically a list of questions. Who you are in the job and who you are at home. And then they plot those dots, social and various things, personality traits that you might possess. And then we hire a lot off of those. Now, the thing about a culture index like that, if you're ever asked to fill one out, first of all, it's not a test, so don't feel like there's a pass-fail, because there's not. And secondly, you need to answer it as honestly as you can. We have had people apply for jobs at Strong who have done the culture index, and the culture index didn't fit the job that they were applying for. But 3 months later, a job would come open where the culture index did fit that job. And so we kept those on file. We would go back, and we would then be able to bring that person in for an interview. And then in the interview, of course, again, we look for culture fit, people we felt like could fit the culture. And, you know, it's different things to different people. But at Strong, we have 10 core values that we live by. And I think it's a better company because of it.
And I'll just reiterate, don't lie on those things, because you don't want a job that isn't a good fit.
Yeah, because here's what happens. Right. You're going to be miserable, and the company's going to be miserable, and you're going to end up leaving out the back door 6 months later.
Right. Anybody else on that one? Okay. We're going to open it up for student questions. Okay. Well, since we are, I do want to offer everybody a chance. I'm just going to ask, what is something you think is important to tell students? Like, what do you want these students to leave with today? What is something about your career or the career field in general for PR and corporate communications? What's something that you want them to know? Anybody?
So this actually is relevant to something that just happened to me a couple of days ago. But my dad actually told me this a couple of weeks ago. You need to treat everyone like they're the CEO of a company, because you never know when they might be, or maybe if they're not the CEO, they may be someone with a really high up position in that company. So just for instance, I was on a phone call for like 2.5 hours the other day with someone who just told me she was a Target employee. So I just thought, you know, she works at a Target store, whatever. We chatted, we laughed. I mean, we were trying to figure out something really complicated. Turns out she was the senior creative project manager for Target. So that was a pretty big deal. And so I got like a positive email about me, someone I thought was just like a cashier or something at the store, but it's just because, you know, I had no idea. But you always need to treat people with respect. You always need to be kind, and you always need to treat them like they are someone who can really determine your future at that company, for sure.
I think one thing that I think is super important for you guys to know right now is that I know you're super busy with school, so I know that's a lot of what you're probably thinking about, but take a little bit of time just to stop and think for a second. If you don't already know what you want to do, if you're like me and really didn't have an idea at all, just stop and think for a minute. Really sit there and think about where you want to see yourself, what you want to do, who you want to surround yourself with, the culture, the environment of the company. You do want that to fit with you and everything. So just really stop and think. Take a little bit of time if you can to think about that if you don't already know, and then start to plan from there. Like once you have some kind of idea, then you know, well, I can reach out to this company and see if they have internships for me for next semester or whatever it might be. And just start to really think about it, and not in a way that's like, oh, that's so far away. I'll get there eventually. Let me finish this class first. Like really think about it, because the earlier you start, the more likely you're going to get a job that you really do like right out of college.
I would say for me, when I meet someone who says they want to go into a writing field, whether that's journalism, whether that's PR, whether that's social media, whether that's whatever it might be, the thing I want to express is that don't let your classwork be it. You know what I mean? Like, get the degree, and the degree is important, and the degree is something they're going to ask you about and sometimes what they require. But for you to present work that you have done outside of the classroom whether that is for a client, whether that is because you've maybe like helped your uncle who owns a company, or even if it's just something that like you've got a personal blog and you've got this creative work and you can show it, that's huge. I mean, that is the biggest thing, because I think for any employer, no matter what field you go into, it's one thing to say, I got the degree and I've got the education. It's another thing to say, here, I know how to do it. You know what I mean? Like this, literally, this is an example I can show you. So that would be, if the question is, what would I want students to know, that is it. That, oh my gosh.
Yeah, that for real. There are a lot of positions, because we're kind of in this age of information and technology. There are a lot of positions at a lot of companies for social media, and I really, back when I was young and dumb, thought I wanted to be in charge of social media stuff, and I didn't even really have a very active social media account. And if I wanted a job in social media in some parameter of that, I needed to make my Instagram account like an actual thing. I needed it to be a full-time job outside of the classroom. And I didn't do that, and it's okay because I found where I fit better. But what Reed said is very important. Having something beyond the classwork is very impressive to bosses, because that not only shows that you were thinking about the future, but it also tells them that you can handle a lot, and you're gonna have to.
Look at the organizations you're involved in too, because a lot of them could use social media help. And most of the clubs and organizations on campus have a social media presence that they need somebody to manage. I know the Alabamian is always looking for people to manage their social media. So look at the different organizations that you're already involved in or want to be involved in, because that might be, if you're looking for social media or something in the corporate or PR, do PR for that organization. That's a great way to get some experience.
I would just say, if there's one thing in the societal culture that we're in today that I would want your generation to carry on, is that whatever you communicate, whether it be social media, a press release, whatever it be, a video, that you do that with journalistic integrity. We see over and over that the media is just continually being called our nation's worst enemies, you know. But we are the gatekeepers of information for the world. And so I just would encourage you to, everything you write, everything you communicate, whatever form, that's done with integrity and with truth.
Retweet. Oh my
I don't know if anyone wants to go after that. Perfect segue. Okay, if any of you have any questions, we have a microphone in the back for you to ask our panelists. So if not, I'm just going to keep grilling them. So. Well, since they're recording, if it's on the microphone, it'll get better for the video.
Okay, because of the segue about social media, I am big into my social media, and I was wondering what you guys look for in social media in order to network ourselves further, and like how I could further network myself through my social media.
So anytime we have somebody apply to Strong, they come to me and they give me their name, and I go look at their social media profiles. I looked at Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I will search you on Google. I will find everything, and I will go back years through your social media. So we just had a new social media assistant apply recently, and we did hire her, but I knew high school, middle school, what she was doing. And I was like, stuff that she did not bring up in her interview, I was like, I know this about you. Like, I already know. You don't even have to tell me. Keep your social media, kind of going back into the integrity, you're advertising yourself. So if there's something on there that you don't think that would be appropriate for the organization you're applying to, take it off, delete it. Unfortunately, not everything is, deletable, but that at least shows that you have put in some effort to clean it up. Watch on my personal social media, I have settings where you can't cuss on my Facebook page. So if somebody tries to comment on something with a cuss word, it won't post it. You can do that on like business pages too. You can turn off the profanity settings. I don't post anything that would be inappropriate for if a child can't see it, I don't post it. So definitely take into account, go through your pages, clean them up, make them look nice. If your profile picture is kind of hard to see or old and you're trying to go into social media, update those profile pictures. Get headshots for business, things like that. Make them look like a business page. So.
Mine is really quick, and it kind of relates to a point I made previously. But if you do work, like if you have done something and you're really proud of it, make sure you share it. And that seems like inherent, but I know, like when I was over the Alabamian for a while, you know, there was some great work that I would see my writers do, but they would never share it on Facebook, and it always baffled me because I was like, you guys have put in the work, show it. You know what I mean? And like, yeah, get people to see it. I mean, and just especially in any industry, like it's not only sharing it, but it's also kind of using that little summary at the top to say, hey, I wrote this, here's why it's important, here's why you should read it. Like, that sounds easy until you have to do it. It's something you've got to develop. So I would just say, yeah, definitely, whatever work you're doing, whether it's classwork, whatever, make sure you share it. Make sure people know that you are constantly progressing in your field.
Sorry, about your social media. So have you taken the PR class here yet?
I'm a freshman. I've taken comms 101.
Okay, so Dr. Wang teaches a social media and PR class. Yeah. So it sounds like something you would really be interested in. I would highly recommend it. She teaches you all about the best times to post on social media, what types of posts get the most likes, what days, like all of that really good information I think that you would benefit from. So I just wanted to let you know.
Something really fast.
I didn't.
Yeah, I
take the
did.
class, unfortunately, but Mackenzie actually took the class.
Yeah, I did. What I'm going to say is not about that, but it's kind of piggybacking like off what you said. You can see like private accounts, right? Yeah. Be careful with your Finstas, people. Be careful. Just, yeah, I mean, if you need like an outlet to like get those feelings out, maybe find a different one, because employees, I know they can find it and they can see it. And I know the ones that I follow say, I mean, some crazy stuff happens on some Finstas. So I just wanted to say, you know, be aware that even though something is private, employers are kind of powerful. They can do some things. They can find some information. So I would just say, if you do have one, if you don't worry about it. But if you do, I may.
Even if it's funny.
Yeah, it could be hilarious, but they can probably access it, and that may be a reason why you don't get an interview or a callback. So I just wanted to add that.
I'm going to add to the part about headshots, because our university photographer back here is setting up headshot days for faculty, students, and staff. So even if you're a student, you just need to sign up with her. And if you want to come to campus, maybe.
Come to campus. We'll schedule. I'll come to campus. I'll take.
Where is the? Do we have information where they can see it out about that, about headshots?
It did with email. Yes,
Did.
actually, watch your email. It will be in the Daily Digest.
All right, so look in the Daily Digest. I know we often ignore those, but look in there, because you can find out how to sign up for one, and that will give you a professional headshot.
Professional photo days is what they've titled it. But my email is also super easy. Alyssa Luna, A Luna.
All right, and I'm going to break the panel for just a minute, because we do have somebody here that I think can answer this question for you as well. Kaylee Martin is our multimedia content specialist for the university, so she handles all over. Yeah, I have to stop and think, though. That's sad. She handles all of our social media for the university.
You want me to answer?
Repeat your question.
Oh, just about, what did you ask? I was listening.
Yourself through social media and like the ways to do it, and not to like things you shouldn't do with it.
I think both of them really hit on it. Nothing's private online. Like even if it's a private profile, it's still on a public site. So, you know, even like everything can be seen. Even if it's private, you know, nowhere's safe if you feel like you need to vent. So I think just always remembering that you're mad now, but in 10 years you're going to want a job. You know, so it's always, you're wanting to market yourself, you're wanting to promote your work, you're want to toot your own horn. Like, that's what it's for, just toot your own horn. And I actually did a social media audit on myself a few days ago. It's a scary place in 2008. So I texted my sister and I was like, why'd you give me a Facebook in 2008? Like, I had nothing relevant to say. So it's like, you know, obviously, you know, Amelia and they're not going to be like, well, you know, in 8th grade, you said that this bag of chips was awful. Like, you know, it's just they want to make sure that you're not still tweeting the same things you were tweeting in 2008. They want to make sure, oh, this person's matured, they've grown, they've found something that they're passionate about. My personal Instagram, we were actually laughing at the fact that since we work in social media, when we get home, we do not get on social media. And that's really bad because I have a photography business. So, like, it's really bad for clients because they're like, do you do stuff? But I get home and I'm like, I don't want to look at Instagram again. But, you know, training yourself on engagement would be the biggest thing. So engagement is everything that's not a like. So it's a comment, it's a share, it's, you know, thinking of things that would get people to interact with your content. Especially if you said you take pictures, you want people to engage with that too. You want them to share your work because then you'll get more books and all that kind of stuff. So in terms of social media, it's always remembering that it is basically your digital billboard. So always make sure you're looking really good and that, you know, even on the bad days, you're still just really grateful for all the opportunities you get and that, you know, even through the tough times, you can work through those situations. You can, you know, you may not have got this job, but you're just really glad that you got an interview. Or, you know, you always want to come off as positive and I'll say, like, and y'all can all agree, like, you're allowed to have an opinion on Facebook and be professional. You're allowed to be funny and be professional. You're allowed to not agree with something and be professional. So that's really just the number one thing with social media is professionalism. And everything on social media tells you not to do that. But do that. Be professional.
Sorry to put you on the spot. You never know what's going to happen, you know. I'm bad about that. Yes, do. And I'll add to that because what she said earlier about integrity is very important because you want it to be professional, you want to brag on yourself, but make sure you're still real because we do look at that as employers. Like when I've hired a couple people, I want to see what someone truly is, not just, hey, this is what I think you want. So make sure that you're real and you have integrity to what you post. Any other questions? Microphone's open. Yeah, come on. We're supposed to be mass comm and comms majors in here. All right, then I'm gonna ask them. We have to one. I'm gonna keep asking them. All right, so tell us how you got your first job.
I got a good one.
Clarification, your first job.
First professional job.
Okay, yeah, we're good. Okay, so I graduated from Montevallo in 2016, and I have a good relationship with Devin Cooley. He graduated in 2015. We worked together in Falcon Fever, doing a lot of stuff together. And so he was an intern for Hibbett Sports, and then he got a job immediately after, like, graduated on Saturday, started working full-time on Monday. And so, like, everybody was all hype about Devin, got a job, and so I graduated, and so I had seen a position open at Hibbett Sports, and so I messaged him, and it was something different than he was even doing. I just wanted to message him and ask about the environment at Hibbett and see what it was like, you know, how are the people, is it a good workplace environment? And what was crazy was he said, it's funny that you messaged me because a video position just became available. And he gave me the connection to my now boss, Emily. And so I had an interview like that week, and then I was hired the next week. So like it's just crazy because, you know, everybody's always like, make sure you're making friends at you know, your university and making connections and network. But it didn't really hit home until my connection with Devin got me a full-time position, which I have been here for 3 years now. And you know, I'm very happy with. So just, that was how I got my job.
So I actually, kind of like Sydney, I interned with the Barons as well. And the whole time that I was interning, there was like probably 15 other interns. And the whole time I was like, oh, I've got this. I'm going to get a job here. Like, this is in the bag. Come September, I did not have a job. And I had not prepared. Every other intern had a job somewhere else. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? Thankfully, I fell back and did something else for a little bit. But then they ended up firing who was my boss that following November. And come to find out, I was the only one that knew how to work all of the equipment in the press box. So they came calling back and they were like, hey, we need you. And so I went back and then I got hired full time again. And then while I was there, Eco, where I work now, they were looking for a marketing coordinator, and they actually were, they came as a group to a Barons game. And I met my boss there, and I was talking to her, and she was just asking me questions. Come to find out, she knew my sister. My sister had kind of told her that I was there. I wasn't looking for another job, but they came and she found me on social media, and then got my phone number and emailed me and asked for me to come interview, and then they immediately offered me the job, and it was just a better opportunity for the time. So you never know who's going to be watching you, and you never know what they're going to see and what they observe of you. So even on your worst day, because I'm pretty sure that the night they came, it was a rain delay. We pulled tarp. I looked like a sweaty pig. Like it was awful. It was awful. So I was like, I really don't know why you decided to hire me after how bad I looked that day. But you just never know, and you never know the connections that you're going to make and what people see and see how hard you work day to day.
I figure I'm on my 13th job. So, and 3 of those just in the last year. It sort of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, advice that we would hand out to young people who are starting out on their career is, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm starting to go bald. I'm starting to lose my hair a little bit. In the back, you may not be able to see it, but I'm starting to lose my hair. For 35 years, I was in the television broadcast industry, all right? 28 of those years were spent here in Birmingham as a sportscaster. My first job was at CNN in Atlanta. I was behind the scenes. I made $3.85 an hour, okay? So don't let anybody ever tell you that you can't do something. When I was in college, I went to college at a school that is very well known for its broadcasting department. When I was in college, I went to school with a bunch of guys from New York who thought it was their God-given right to be sports broadcasters because they rooted for the Yankees and the Islanders and the Knicks and the Giants. They just thought it was their God-given right to be sportscasters, and they told me I would never make it. And then I went to CNN, and because I was starting to lose my hair, even though I was interning in the sports department and working full-time as a production person, people told me, hey man, you're not going to make it. You'll never be on television with that hair. And so there are always going to be people, heck, my own dad. My very first on-air job in Knoxville, Tennessee. Very first time I was on the air. After I got off the air, my parents happened to be in the lobby because they helped me move down. I was 24 years old. And the first thing he says to me when I walk into the lobby was, are you sure this is what you want to do for a living? And I said, well, yeah, why? And he goes, because you're not any good. And he was 100% right. I wasn't any good, right? I wasn't. But see, somebody's always going to want to tell you that you're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not good enough. And don't let anybody ever tell you that. You got to persevere, you got to be aggressive, right? If you really want something, it's attainable. But set the goal realistic. Be sure you set realistic goals. Identify the obstacles that might stand in your way of reaching that goal, and then figure out a way forward to obtaining that goal.
Mine's a little bit boring, especially compared to that, but I don't know if anybody remembers Hunter Huey, but he graduated from here. He was the SGA president. He started working at Shipped about a month before I did, and Shipped does referral bonuses, where if you refer somebody, then you get $500 if they stay for 90 days. So Hunter referred me to Shipped, and I got the...
We had 2,000 in strong, and you don't have to say.
Hey! Hey, go ahead. No skin off my back. So I've been referring people left and right, but anyway. Yeah, I referred Mackenzie, but so he referred, and that's another thing I just wanted to mention, I guess, because of everyone's talk about connections and how most, it sounds like, of the people that have mentioned how they got their first job were through connections from college. And that's also how I got my first job. And I actually got the job at Shipped before I graduated. So I also just wanted to mention, not too early to start. You could always go ahead and start applying for jobs before you graduate. You let them know that you're going to be graduating in May, and they're like, okay, sweet. Like, you know, so go ahead and start early. Make sure to keep up the connections, and agreeing with this gentleman again, being aggressive is super important in a positive way, a positive aggression.
So mine is kind of twofold. I was not seeing, I did what someone recommended, I can't remember who, where they're like, hey, if you don't know exactly what you want to do, look at your life down the road and see what it is you're doing and kind of figure out how to get there. So I was actually a family consumer science major here for 2 years, I think, or a year and a half, and I just wasn't liking the direction that I was kind of being filtered into. And so I called a company that I knew I wanted to work for. I called Southern Living, and I was like, I want to work for you guys someday. What in the world do you need to see on my resume? And they were like, oh, well, preferably a background in journalism or English. Food background is good. And so I legitimately that same day went to the MassCom building and changed my major. And I got my degree in journalism, and then so that was the first part of it. That was the first part of getting my job, like figuring out how to get it, what the company was looking for. And then another part was absolutely connections. I don't know if anyone here would know Ryan Moriarty, but he was a student here, and he was an amazing, friendly person. Everyone who knew him loved him. And those are the kinds of people you want to be friends with, by the way, because it reflects on you. But he knew that I wanted to work at basically Southern Living. It's a long story. It's a big company. And he knew that I was about to graduate. He said, hey, there's a fellowship opening. Send me your resume, send me your writing samples, like get it to me tonight. So another part of that, not only the connections, but also being ready always. Like people said, just go ahead and start applying now. It's okay, maybe not as a freshman, but do find out what those companies want. Don't necessarily, like it was discussed earlier, don't just pretend to be something because you know that's what they want you to be, but figure out how you need to gear your strengths to get whatever career job you want. So yeah.
Anybody else want to tell us how they got their first professional job?
I never left. So.
But you wouldn't have gotten those if you hadn't have worked your connections. All goes back to networking and connections and getting that experience. Of course, you know, as several people up here said, utilize your resources on campus and get experience in different areas. So.
I actually think of something. So like when I was here, when I was a student, my like main goal forever was to be a music journalist. Like I wanted to interview bands for Rolling Stone and do all that. And I've had experience with some of that, and I've found a little bit of success. But after I graduated, I interned with basically that. I got to write for Pace Magazine for like 3 months, and it was amazing. I didn't get paid, but it was amazing. But I mean, you know, it felt really good after I graduated to get an internship at exactly what I wanted to do. But then kind of like Hope was talking about with the Barons, when it came time for the internship to end, that was it. There was no career for me to just like go into. There was no full-time position open. There was later, bad timing on their part. Anyway, luckily, there was a position open for media relations specialist here, and I knew Tiffany, who was over that position. And so did I immediately leave this university and think like, I want to come work here again? No. Did I leave this university and think, do I want to do a PR job? No. But then I came back and I did it, and that experience that I had in the UR office, I'm just fantastic. I mean, I learned so much, and it expanded my skill set so much, and I would not have this job at Shipped without that initial experience. That sort of illustrates my earlier point of like, do not box yourself in and think you have to do something. Like, explore other options because you can always build your skills. Always, always.
And hopefully a liberal arts education is teaching you to be well-rounded. So remember that from the University of Montevallo. All right, we have just a couple minutes left, so does anybody want a last-minute question?
One question, you guys can do it. It can be a fun. What if it's like a fun question?
Yeah, any fun?
And why?
I have a question.
Good.
So when you graduated from college and you were applying for jobs, if there were any of you that had like multiple job offers, how did you pick the one?
Good question.
So I graduated in 2014, but I didn't start at Strong until 2017. So I had a big gap of just applying to every job I possibly could. But the week that I interviewed at Strong, I also had a job interview up in New York. And I told Strong in my interview, like, I am going to be going to New York. I've got a job interview up there. And Strong, like, really pushed to hire me. I interviewed on Tuesday. They called me on Wednesday to come in for a second interview on Thursday. They offered me the job Friday morning. No, not even Friday morning. Thursday afternoon when I left. I was at the post office. So it was super fast to get me to accept the job. And I still told them, well, I can't start on Monday because I'm going to New York. Like, I've already bought the plane ticket for the interview. So I went and did that, and it was a decision of who offered the best benefits, what the culture was like in both places. I kind of compared that versus what I was going to be doing. So definitely look at like company culture too, if the company is going to be someplace you're going to fit into. It kind of goes back to our culture index that we do. If you're not going to fit, or if you think that it's not really going to be a great opportunity for you, if you're going to think you're not going to like it, don't put a bad taste in your mouth about the field because you're doing something you don't like, or you're someplace you don't like.
So funny story. I actually interviewed with Hibbett Sports and got offered the job. And at the same time, the Barons were offering a job. And it was just one of those things that I'm a religious person personally. So it was something that I prayed about. It was something that it was a very hard decision. It did not happen overnight. I think I waited till the last minute possible to tell each one. I was like, I don't know what to do right now. It was something that I struggled with. And so at the end of the day, like, there is a lot of regret that I didn't go to Hibbett, but at the same time, I learned a lot from the Barons. And then when it came to going to ECO and leaving the Barons, like, there's still, like, there's days that I miss it, you know, immeasurably. But at the same time, like, the benefits and the culture of the organization that I'm at now is much better for where I am in my life right now. So not to say that I won't ever go back to sports, or I won't ever maybe go back to Hibbett. You know, you never know where you're going to end up. So it's just one of those things, I guess, that you have to, you know, take your life where you're at in perspective. Also, like, you know, right now I'm not married. I don't have any kids. So I'm open to go and jump and do different things right now. Whereas if I did have a family, then that might have changed my decision a little bit more. But it was a difficult decision, and I ultimately went back to my parents. I went to my friends. I did every trick in the book. I wrote down the pros and the cons and like everything. And I think finally I was just like, I don't know what to do. And I think I just kind of picked a straw, and I was like, okay, that's what I'm doing. Like, so sometimes you just have to work through those. I'm probably not the best one to give advice about this, but I just want to let you know it is a struggle. It's hard to do that. So don't feel bad if you do struggle. So.
Good problem to have, though. You'll be lucky. You know, that's a fortunate problem to have. I'll also add to that is ask questions in an interview. You know, when they get to that point of, do you have any questions for us? Ask questions. It's a great way to get a feel for what the company culture is like, what you're going to be doing. So that'll give you a lot more information. Anybody else want to answer that one? And then we'll wrap it up.
This is kind of like being offered two jobs at the same time. But I was not happy with my pay at my job recently, and so I started looking for a new job because I knew that I needed more money because I have a family. And so I applied for a job, was offered the job, and I went to my bosses and I said, hey, I really don't want to leave. I really don't want to leave. But they're offering me a lot more than y'all are paying me, and I've been asking y'all for a raise for a while. And they said, well, I mean, we're a huge corporation. We probably can't do anything for you because you've got to let them know tomorrow what you're going to do. But I mean, don't say anything to them yet. So I went to bed that night. I was like, well, I'm about to start a new job, and I'm really not thrilled about it, but it's more money, and I need more money. The next morning, my boss pulled me into her office at 8 o'clock and said, so I don't know how this happened, but we pulled strings, and we got you a raise. And they offered me more than the other company had offered me. So make yourself priceless and leverage yourself too. Leverage everything you can, because people, they'll pay you as little as they can. Unfortunately, yeah. So maybe if you're offered 2 different jobs and you really like the pay of one over the pay of the other, just say, hey, I was offered this at this place. Can you match it? I really don't want to work for them, but money. Poor college grad. So that's, yeah, always ask for more.
Okay, well, first, I want to say thank you to all of you, and a round of applause for our panel. Great guests today, so thank you very much for sharing your wisdom with all of us. And we are dismissed, but feel free to mingle, and if you didn't want to ask a question, with the microphone, feel free to catch one of our guests afterwards. Thank you again.